Welcome back, and thanks for watching Holy Land Uncovered. I'm Emily Francis. Lev Tahor is an ultra-Orthodox Jewish cult which was hunted by the authorities here and several countries, including Canada, Guatemala, and, of course, Israel, following severe accusations of child abuse and violence. After the death of their leader, Rabbi Shlomo Helbrantz, a new exhibition shows us the behind-the-scenes of this group. Maya Margit was there and has the story.
Modesty. What does it mean to be covered? What is it like to be a woman in a public space? And how does religion come into play? These are just some of the questions Israeli photographer Lily Almog asks in her latest series, called The Space Within, recently on show at the Tower of David Museum in Jerusalem.
The topic of this work is actually of the covered woman. It's a general look on what's happening in religion of today.
The women in The Space Within are modeled after those in Lev Tahor, an extremist Jewish sect in which women cover themselves from head to toe. The outfit resembles a burqa, which is why Lev Tahor are sometimes referred to as the Jewish Taliban. Almog is hoping exhibition goers can re-examine their own preconceived notions about female modesty.
I got inspired from seeing a very religious Jewish woman dressed all in black in a Hasidic neighborhood in Jerusalem, which I thought at the beginning that she was Muslim, and then I realized that she's actually Jewish.
Branded a dangerous cult by an Israeli court, Lev Tahor has remained isolated since it was formed in the 1980s. Its members adhere to an austere form of Judaism and reject Zionism. They've had several run-ins with the law. In 2014, most of the members fled from Canada to Guatemala after being accused of child abuse and neglect by Quebec's Superior Court. Almog traveled to Guatemala, where many had settled, and met with the group. But the women of Lev Tahor were not comfortable being photographed, so the artist decided she would use models instead.
I'm not really a documentarist, so I used it as an inspiration, and I used model to convey my ideas or what I want to say.
The conclusion of the show is a big box covered with a black curtain. When visitors pull back the curtain, they're in for a surprise.
When you open the curtains, you can see yourself. Then when you see yourself, maybe you can understand the other.
A chance to reflect on the limits of women's privacy, public space, and religion, in all modesty. Maya Margit, I-24 News.
And Maya joins us live now, and I mean, very, very interesting story. You know, first of all, what was your overall impression being there? It's kind of weird. I don't know the better word to explain it, but it's
well, it's a very interesting exploration of modesty and what the limits are of the gaze. What are you allowed to see? What are you not allowed to see? How does religion influence our culture? Especially, this is not really a religion, this is a cult. So it's a lot more extreme than any regular kind of thing.
What are their practices and their beliefs, you know, that make them, you know, be classified as a cult?
Right, so from the age of 3, first of all, it was started in the 1980s. It's a relatively recent cult by Shlomo Helbrantz. And what happened is that from the age of 3, boys and women, actually, let's start with women. The women, the girls, from the age of 3, they have to be covered from head to toe in this black kind of fabric, which is why they're sometimes referred to as the Jewish Taliban, because of the way of dress that's very extreme. Boys from the age of 3, their heads are shaved, and they have to go and study Torah day in and day out.
From age 3?
Right.
Before they can even read?
And,
wow.
And the women, the girls have to be taught domestic tasks, you know, different things that women are expected to do when they grow older. It's a very kind of extreme sect, and they reject Darwinism. They reject many different things. They all wear the same kind of eyeglasses. Of course, now their leader, Shlomo Helbrantz, was found drowned just recently, a few months ago in the summer in Mexico. So things have changed for them.
Right. What's happened, you know, since the death of the leader? I mean, is it kind of, has it broken up, or is it, you know, has a new wave of, you know, leaders stepped in?
So according to Oded Tweek, this is an activist who basically took his sister out of the cult. His sister had joined the cult, and in 2015 he traveled all the way to Guatemala, took her and her kids out of the cult and brought them back to Israel so they could live a normal life. So he told me that after the death, he's still in touch with people in the cult. Most of the cult members do not talk to anyone outside of the cult. About 80% of them do not talk to anyone. But the people that he's in touch with told him that they're back in Guatemala. They didn't stay in Mexico. They buried their leader, Shlomo Helbrantz, back in Guatemala. And now, apparently, his sons have taken over the cult. Two of his sons, Nachman and Yoel, have taken over, according to Oded Tweek. And they're living in a forest in squalid and horrible conditions, according to Tweek, in tents, in a really kind of secluded and closed-off area. They're not very open to talking to anyone.
And are they like living in those conditions, like because they're literally hiding?
They're you know, the leaders are trying to maintain control. Like any good cult, you have to maintain power and control over the members. And those who try to leave the cult apparently are not able to, because they're told that they owe $40,000 in debt, or they have to pay for this, or they have to pay for that. So that's how they prevent people from leaving the cult. So in order to get people out, it's a very complicated story. And in Israel now, actually just yesterday, there was a Knesset committee, a parliament committee meeting about creating a law that would stop these cults from operating, at least in Israeli territory.
Right.
There are about 100 different cults in Israel and thousands of people that are apparently involved in cults in Israel, not just Lev Tahor, but in other cults as well. So they're trying to come up with a new bill that would stop these cults from operating and even imprison people for 10 years, people who are leading or organizing these kinds of organizations.
No, also the brother that went rescued, you know, the sister, do we know, I mean, has he been kind of aiding, you know, and counseling some of the other families on how to do the same?
Yes, so he leads an organization, a kind of association that helps represent these families, the families of the people whose relatives are stuck or trapped in this cult and who cannot get out. And he's trying to work with the Knesset, with the Israeli parliament, to put forward this law and help bring them back. He is offering counseling and different things like that, but it's a very complicated story because they're so far away. They're in Guatemala in the middle of a forest, and then you have to deal with the local authorities there. It's legally very complicated.
Right, just
you know?
a big mess. But anyway, great report, interesting story. I mean, to hear these things that you would never know about otherwise. Thank you, Maya. We will be right back after the break. Don't go anywhere.